Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Rowell. Alright, we're going to do another episode of Bytes and Nibbles with Breck today. Today's recipe comes to us from our friend Cynthia Mincher. She actually sent me a couple of recipes, and one of them actually looks pretty interesting. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of times when I get recipes from people who are maybe professional cooks, or at least people who got their recipes from professional cooks, a lot of times there's a lot of details missing on the recipe. And this is such an example. A lot of the ingredients that are listed on this particular recipe don't indicate an actual quantity. They say 1 can of this, but they don't say how big the can has got to be. And so it gets a little bit vague as to how much of something to get. So I took some intelligent guesses on how much of the individual components that we're going to need for this, and we're going to try it. And in fact, this recipe was so vague it didn't even include a name, so I don't even know what to call it. Basically what it is, it's tomato sauce and tomatoes and ground beef and macaroni and some pinto beans and a little chili pepper. So it sounds really good. It sounds like some sort of a macaroni ground beef casserole kind of thing. So I think that's what we'll probably call it. And it can be done in the Instant Pot. So that was a real, big reason why I chose this one. So let's get going on Cynthia Mincher's macaroni and tomato sauce casserole. This is going to be good. Alright, so here are the ingredients for our recipe. One of the things that the recipe said was that this freezes well and it makes a lot. But since I have such a massive Instant Pot here, I actually decided that even though it makes a lot, I'm actually going to double the recipe. So this is 2 times what the recipe actually calls for. Starts off with 2 pounds of ground beef, 2 cups of elbow macaroni, 2 onions, some chili powder to taste, some diced tomatoes, some pinto beans, and tomato sauce. Now the recipe actually said tomato juice, like the kind of stuff that you'd drink, but I don't know if that was a typo or actually what was intended, but I kind of made an executive decision to go with the tomato sauce instead. And so that's what I've gone with here. And like I said, I wasn't sure what quantities to get of any of this stuff, so I just got the biggest cans I could, because this isn't one of those things where if you don't mix up the ingredients exactly, it's not like a cake where you don't get things mixed exactly, it's not going to work. If I got 2 big cans of something, then it'll be a little saucier than it would normally be. So you know what, I think this will be all okay. Now this recipe is actually fairly easy to prepare, because basically you just prepare all the ingredients and you throw it in the Instant Pot and cook for 4 hours. But there's a little bit of preparation you have to do up front. First off, they recommend that you cook the onions and the ground beef in a large skillet until it's browned. And also you need to prepare the macaroni ahead of time. So I'm going to do those 2 things kind of at the same time. We're basically we've taken a large saucepan, filled it with water, and I am going to turn on the heat, and we're going to bring that to a boil, and then we're going to brown the ground beef and onions in my skillet. So while the water is heating up for the macaroni, I'm going to actually brown my onions and my ground beef in the skillet. And now one of the things that I did here is I've already chopped up the onions. You've seen me, I did that in the food processor. You've seen me chop up onions a million times before, so you know what, if you're unsure of the process, you can go back and look at some of the old videos and see how that's done. But all right, and then we're going to turn this on to a high heat to start with until we start cooking. And we're just going to kind of mix this all in here. Once I get it kind of all browned and ready to go here, then we'll just throw it right into the Instant Pot. Now as I'm browning my ground beef, my water has come to a boil, so I am going to add the macaroni to the water, and we're just going to let that cook for about 7 minutes. Ground beef is coming along nice, needs a little bit more time just to get all the pink out of there, but I think we'll be done here in just a couple minutes. All right, so our meat is nice and brown now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drain that. Since there's an awful lot of liquid in here, I'm going to drain it into a colander. Let all the oil and all that good stuff drain out of it here. Let that drain for just a couple minutes here. I also noticed that my pasta was ready, so I am going to drain that too. I got just a little handy dandy strainer I'm going to use for that, just because I would normally drain my pasta in the colander, but colander's being used right now, so you improvise, right? And we'll just let that drain for a moment. Once they're done draining, I'm just going to throw it all into the inner pot and the Instant Pot and mix it with everything else, and then we'll put it on the cooker. And supposedly this cooks for about 4 hours, and so that'll give me a lot of time to do other things today. So my meat has finished draining now, so I'm just going to pour that all into the Instant Pot here. I'm glad I kept the camera a little bit further away from the pot here. It'll all be fogged over right now with all the steam coming off of this. And then we're also going to add the macaroni. And just for fun, we'll kind of all just mix it all together. And then we're going to add in all the tomatoes, the tomato sauce, and the pinto beans. Alright, so I've actually strained the pinto beans and rinsed them just to get all the liquid separated from that. And I'm just going to pour the pinto beans in there. I'm going to pour the tomatoes, the canned tomatoes. Like I said, we're doing twice the recipe here, so we got to have 2 of all of this. And the tomato sauce. Like I said, the recipe calls for tomato juice, and I'm not sure if that's a typo. So, like I said, I just made an executive decision to go tomato sauce instead. And then I just kind of mix it all up. Looks pretty good, right? Smells good. See, this is the reason I went with the really high, the really large Instant Pot, because now you can make all sorts of stuff like this and make it in quantity and freeze it and be in good shape. And last but not least, I am going to introduce chili powder. Now the instructions don't specifically tell you how much chili powder to use. It says to taste. Well, you know me, I like things to be a little bit on the sharp side. So I've put about 2 tablespoons of chili powder in. That's one tablespoon per dose. Since I'm doubling the recipe, it's 2. So I got that in. I'm going to mix that up, and then we'll put the lid on and start cooking. So let's mix that all up one last time here. So we're going to put the lid on it. Since we don't want to pressure cook it, we're going to press the manual release button so that the pressure never builds up inside the chamber, because we're just going to slow cook this for 4 hours. So I'm going to click on the slow cook button, which is right here on my device. I'm going to set the timer for 4 hours. And that's all there is to do. We just start now. After a few seconds, this thing will start going. It'll start heating up, and in about 4 hours, we will be ready to go. Alright, so we are 4 hours later, and this is what it looks like. It smells good, and I gotta admit I cheated a little bit. I took a little taste. It's actually pretty good, so let's sit down, have a bowl of this, and give it our final review here. All right, so here we are, ready to go on this now. Like I said, I took a little bit of a cheat test, so I already know it's pretty good. But it is exactly what you would expect from it. It's tomato sauce and tomato flavor, and the meat and the macaroni. It's exactly what you expect you're getting out of it. So it's very tasty. I'm told it freezes up really well, and so you can put it in the freezer and it'll last for a long time. And yeah, it's pretty good. I have no complaints about it. Yeah, you can kind of taste the chili powder in the background. It isn't overpowering in any way, shape, or form. So I think about a tablespoon per batch is probably at the right mix for this. Like I said, the recipe actually called for tomato juice, and I don't know if that was a typo, but if it was, then you can try it that way. If it wasn't, this is pretty good too. So yeah, no problem with this. I'll definitely eat this. It's tasty, and it'll be a good filling meal, and yeah, no complaints whatsoever. So I think that's about all that I have for today. Remember to send in your own recipes to escapingthemouse@gmail.com. And other than that, thanks as always for watching, and I will see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Bon appetit!